Welcome to the channel Physics Made Easy. In the ISC paper, today we will discuss section C from question 13 to question 19. Each question carries 3 marks along with 2 internal choices. So begin with the question 13. M, N, O, P, these are the 4 plates of the capacitor. This question says, in the figure M, N, O and P are thin similar metallic plates which are equally separated by the distance d. This gap, this gap, this gap. It is d. M is connected to a cell of potential difference V and P is earthed. Look, this is positive terminal and here P is earthed. You have to find first potential of each plate. Look here. At M, if you write the answer, then V of the plate M will be equal to V. It is connected with the positive terminal of the battery, and you can write directly that Vp will be 0 because it is considered with respect to earth at 0 potential. What about N and O? The potential difference is V, this total, and these 1D, 2D and 3. This is the D's. Then what will be the potential of N and P? You have to divide the potential difference V for the N and O which are equally separated. So what will you write for Vn? You write here Vn for 2/3 of V, then Vo as 1/3 of V, because 1/3 and 2/3 addition will make V. So in this way fall of potential takes place. Okay, these distances are D. Now second part, if N and O are connected by a wire, then what will be the potential of each plate? If these two are connected by wire, then this will not be a capacitor. Okay, now what will happen? Again, for the Vm and Vp, you will write the same answer. This is V, this is 0. And these N and O, now these are not the part of capacitor as they are joined. They will have same potential difference because N and O, they are joined with the wire. So potential of both will be same. So what will you write? This Vn equal to Vo equal to now will be V by 2. Look the third part. And look here again, this V by 2 will be V. Third part, will the charges on M and P change? If you join these two, then will the charges change? Yes. You know what is initial capacitance when they are not joined? What will you write? Epsilon naught A upon D. What is this D here? You will write 3D. Is it? And what is final capacitance after joining these two? Then only this and this gap will be there. That is, it will be epsilon naught A upon 2D. Which is bigger? Later one. Since capacitance increases, and you know capacitance is Q by V. For the given V, Q also increases. So the charges on M and P, yes, they will change, they will increase. In this way, you will solve all the 3 parts. They are the conceptual ones. I hope they will be clear to you. Look the question 14. Okay, I am going to rub this. In this question, it is given that derive the Snell's law of refraction using Huygens wave theory. You know, Snell's law of refraction, as per the mathematical expression, you write refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium is equal to sine of angle of incidence and ratio of sine of angle of incidence to the sine of angle of refraction. Also, it is this refractive index is the ratio of speed of light in air or vacuum to the speed of light in medium. How to derive this Snell's law? Using Huygens wave theory. How to draw the figure to show this? Look, if this is the surface, suppose its name S1, S2, separating the medium number 1 and 2. Okay. Let a plane wave front is incident on the surface. Then how will you show the plane wave front? Like this. These two are the parallel rays. There are so many rays. And what about the wavefront? Wavefront is a plane at which all the medium particles oscillate in the same phase. So how will you give the name of the wavefront? This, suppose AB. AB is the wavefront, and these are the, I have shown only two rays which are the extreme rays. All the rays are in between these two. All the rays are striking at different points at the interface, and this name is S1 and this is suppose S2. I have written here, this is S2. Okay. Now what happens in the medium 1? Suppose the velocity of the rays, light wave, is V1, and in the second medium the velocity is V2. When this ray strikes the surface here at A, the extreme ray is at B, then it has to cover this distance. Suppose this is BC, and how much distance it will cover with the speed V1 in time t? You will write here, this will be V1 t, distance will be speed into t. Okay. At this point A, for this ray, if you draw the normal, what will you observe? That this is the angle of incidence, and you know this AB is perpendicular to this ray, then this will be 90 minus I. What will you write for this? This will be also I. Why? Because this normal and this surface, they are also perpendicular. So if this total is 90, this is 90 minus I, so this will be I. Clear? Let V2 is denser medium. What happens? In denser medium, we know the velocity of the light decreases. Bending occurs due to speed change. So look here that the time in which this ray covers the distance from B to C, that is V1t, in that time, what happens? This ray is refracted and towards normal it bends like this. Will it bend or not towards normal? During that time in t, what will be the refracted wavefront? To find that, you have to draw normal here also at the point of incidence of this ray. So this is the normal, and if I write C here, then what will you find? You have to draw, since the incident wavefront is plane wavefront, so refracted will also be plane wavefront. Then you have to draw parallel to this ray a ray from here like this. Okay, to show that if this is the ray refracted in the second medium, then it is also bending with the angle of refraction shown by this ray is R. Now as you know that this, from this point, if you draw a normal at this point, okay, you draw a 90-degree line normal, so this will be the AC dash. AB is incident wavefront and CC dash is refracted wavefront. Look, CC dash is perpendicular to this one angle 90 degree and here this one is 90 degree. What will be this angle? 90 minus R. Then what will be this angle? R. Look again, this is normal, this is refracted ray, this is R. This will be 90 minus R, then this will be R. Clear? So, AB incident wavefront, CC dash refracted wavefront, and you find that this AC dash distance is V2t because the refracted ray travel with the speed V2 in the same time t. Which time? In which the ray covers from B to C in the medium 1. V1 t distance in the first medium in the time t and V2 t distance in the second medium in the same time t. Now, in the triangle ABC, what will you write here? If you write sine I, what will be sine I? This will be V1t upon AC. Look here, perpendicular upon hypotenuse. And in triangle AC dash C, what will be sine R? What will you write here? This sine R, this is angle R, so this will be V2t upon AC. You know Snell's law. What does Snell's law say? That sine I upon sine R is refractive index of second medium with respect to 2. And what is here? If you divide these two, AC will be cancelled, T will be cancelled. What are you getting? V1 upon V2. So, in this way Snell's law is derived and incident and reflected wavefronts are shown. Question 15. In this figure, the applied voltage is V0 sine 100t plus phi to the applied AC voltage in series LCR circuit. Draw the potential and current in a vector diagram showing the phase angle. Also, find the phase difference between voltage and current. You know, this LCR series combination of all LCR, it is shown here with the AC source. You can find V, it is given V0 sine omega t plus phi. You know omega, in place of omega you can compare V with the V0 sine omega t plus phi. Then omega is 1000 as per comparison. Okay. First part, draw the potential and current in the vector diagram, that is phasor. You know, if this is the current or voltage across resistance, okay, then this will be the VL as voltage leads the current, and this will be the VC as voltage is lagging behind the current in CR circuit. First of all, we will see VL and VC, which is bigger. Then you will find this VL as IXL. And what is XL? You can write I omega L. XL is inductive reactance, so omega L. It is given by I omega into 1000 into L. What is L? It is 100 into 10 to the power minus 3. So, it is I into, this is 100 millihenry. So, this is 100 into 100, 10 to the power 4, 10 to the power 4 minus 3, that is 10. Okay. So, this is I into 10 volts. What about VC? If you find VC, then it will be IXC, that is I in upon omega C. What is this? I upon omega is 1000. Omega is 1000 here. Okay. So put here 1000. Then this will be 100. Here this is 1000 into 2 microfarad. So 2 into micro means 10 to the power plus 6 in the numerator minus 6. So here will be plus 6. So it will be this is 1000 into 1000, 1000 upon 2 will be 500 because this is 1000, this is cancelling. So this is here 500 I. Okay. Obviously VC is greater than VL, so I have drawn this VC vector bigger than VL. This will be from O. If you find this is the vector VC minus VL. Then if this is the vector I, this is vector VC minus VL. Complete the vector diagram like this, and this is the resultant voltage making an angle phi with the voltage across resistance. Draw the potential and current in a vector diagram. This is current. Current and voltage are in the same phase across the resistance. So I or V are at the x-axis. So voltage across C, voltage across L, as it has been shown here, and this is phi phase angle. But it is said find the phase angle. Here what can you write? Tan phi. Tan phi you can write here. This will be VC minus VL upon VR. What can you write here? This VC, as taking I common, this will be 500 minus 100 upon VR. VR is IR. R is how much? 400. So you will write 400. So look here, this I will be cancelled. This will be 1. It implies that how much is the phase angle? 45 degree. Why? Because tan phi is 1. It means phi is 45 degree. So how to find phase angle? How to plot the phasor diagram? This was the first question. And choice of this question, it is written here. Define angle of dip. First part. How will you define angle of dip? At any place at the Earth's surface, the Earth's magnetic field makes angle with the horizontal in the magnetic meridian, that is called angle of dip. Listen again. At any place at the Earth's surface, the Earth's magnetic field makes angle with the horizontal in the magnetic meridian at that place, that is called angle of dip. Second, a magnet of magnetic moment M is situated in the direction of magnetic field. What is its potential energy? As you know, potential energy is given by this U equal to, U is the representation of potential energy, minus M dot B. M and B both are vector. So what can you write here? This is minus MB cos theta. Since it is given in the direction, that means theta 0 cos 0 1. So what will be the answer of first part? Only minus MB. Will it be or not? Cos 0 will be 1, so only minus MB. Second part, work done when magnet is rotated by 180 degree. How will you solve the second part? Look, to solve the second part, as you know, when the first case you write here, this is U1. What will be the U2 when magnet is rotated by 180 degree? Then you will write here, this is minus MB cos 180 degree. Cos 180 is minus 1. So what will be this? Plus MB. Therefore, work done equal to change in potential energy, U2 minus U1. So this is MB minus MB. Will it be or not? Look, U1 is minus MB and U2 is plus MB. So U2 minus U1, what will be the answer? This will be 2 MB. Okay, so in this way, second part is solved. See question 16. For two thin lenses kept in contact with each other, show that 1 upon f equal to 1 by f1 plus 1 by f2 where the terms have their usual meanings. How to solve this question? First of all, we suppose that this is the first lens, which is thin convex lens, and an object is placed here in front of it. Suppose at the distance u, a point object, you have to show like this, okay, and the ray incident at the lens is forming, it is converged here, and it forms the point image here at I dash, okay. So this is the V dash image distance. This lens has focal length f1. What will you write the expression? As per the lens equation, 1 upon f equal to 1 upon v minus 1 upon u. In place of f you write f1, in place of v you write v dash. This is equation number 1. This is the expression, okay. This is the ray diagram. In contact with it, another lens of focal length f2 is placed. Then how to draw the figure? Look, you have to draw the another lens in contact with the first lens, and its focal length as it is given is f2. Then what will be here? More conversion, one lens less conversion, two lenses more conversion. So this I dash will behave like the object for this lens of focal length f2, and the final image will be formed here at the distance I. And what will be this distance from this? This will be V. This will be the final image distance. For second lens, again you write the lens formula 1 by f equal to 1 by v minus 1 upon u. Write in the normal way. But look here, f is f2, you have it in f2. What is object here? This is v dash. And with which sign? You know, sign convention rule, in the direction of ray, in which the direction ray is moving, that distance is covered in the direction of ray. It is used with positive sign. So this u is here v dash u. In place of u you will write v dash, okay. Now v, as usual, this is v. Since these two lenses are combined, so you have to add these two equations also. After addition, what will you get? 1 upon f1 plus 1 upon f2 equal to, look here, this 1 upon v dash and minus 1 upon v dash will be cancelled. What are you getting? 1 by v minus 1 upon u. If you replace these two lenses by a single lens of focal length f, then what can you write in place of 1 by v minus 1 by u? As 1 upon f. This is the equivalent lens of these two lenses, a single lens. So the given expression you have proved. Is it okay or not? Look. Okay. Now come to the 17th question. Draw the ray diagram of compound microscope for normal vision. Normal vision means the final image is formed at the infinity. How to draw the compound microscope figure? Look, you know, compound microscope has two convex lenses. One is of smaller aperture and other is of bigger. You draw the principal axis. This is the smaller lens, okay, and this lens is called objective. If this lens has focal length shown by objective lens is this, you write FO. At the optical center O, measure the same distance on both sides. So this is also FO. Okay. Put the object here and name this object AB. Clear? From the object, one ray parallel to the principal axis, it will pass through focus. So suppose this ray is parallel to the principal axis, it passes through the focus like this. The other ray which passes through the optical center, then this ray So these rays, if you take the pencil and scale, these rays are meeting here, then this is the real image, inverted image A dash B dash of the object AB, smaller object. So this is the magnification. Draw the arrow right here, this is the objective lens. Now since for normal vision final image is to be formed at infinity, what you have to do here, that the bigger lens called eyepiece or eye lens is placed in such a way that this image is formed within the focal length of this lens. This is eyepiece. Okay, then measure this is the optical center, denote with E. Then this distance on other side also, this will be the, I think this will be the distance FE here also. Both the focal points are at the same distance from E optical center. As per the rule, a ray parallel to the principal axis, it will ray parallel to the principal axis passes through focus. So it will pass through the focus like this. Other ray passing through optical center. Then what will you find here? This other ray which is passing through the optical center. This is not straight one. If you see, this is the FE dash, then you will find this one, and this one is the ray. They are diverging in moving forward, so you have to extend back. So extend back with the help of scale in the same direction. Okay, then what will you find? That the final image is obtained somewhat here. So if this is the object AB and this is the object's final image A dash double dash B double dash, this is the net magnified image. By placing the eye here, that's why this lens is named as eyepiece. This distance is VE, because for eyepiece the symbols are VE equal to this D. You write here at the distance, least distance of distinct vision. That's why normal vision is said. This is the ray diagram. Draw the diagram, mark the arrow, level the diagram, put the FE optical center, and in this way you have to draw the figure. Second part says, how will you distinguish between a compound microscope and a telescope? Simply by seeing them. Look here. Here the objective is of smaller aperture, and in case of telescope the objective lens is of larger aperture. So by seeing them you can identify that objective is a smaller aperture than compound microscope, larger aperture than astronomical telescope. The choice question of question 17. In Young's double slit experiment, the two slits are 0.15 mm apart and illuminated by monochromatic light of wavelength 450 nanometer. Screen is 1 meter away from the slits. Find the distance of second bright fringe from the central maxima and distance of second dark fringe from the central maxima. You should know the relations for bright and dark fringes, only then you will be able to solve. For the first case, that is for the bright fringes, the distance is given by the formula n d lambda upon d, where this n is 2 for the second bright fringe. You will put n as 2. This distance d is 1 meter. You know capital D is the distance of screen from the slit, and lambda it is given 450 what nanometer, so into 10 to the power minus 9 upon d, distance between the slits 0.15. what is this unit? Millimeter. Pay attention on the unit, so this is minus 3. Now you can solve it. Remove the decimal, put here 10 to the power 2 and you will get here this 15 3 ja, this will be 0, so this will be 60 into 10 to the power minus 9, this will be 5, this will be minus 4 meter, or you can write 6 millimeter. Clear? Similarly, for the second relation, how will you write this y n dash? Suppose you write for the second dark fringe. For the dark fringe, learn the relation is this n minus half d lambda upon d. Again the second dark, so you put here n as 2. 2 minus half will be 3 by 2. So what will you write here? This will be 3 by 2 into the same thing. This is 1, this is 450 into 10 to the power minus 9 upon this 0.15 into 10 to the power minus 3. So what will be here? This is 6 millimeter and this is again you will get this is 30, this will be become here minus 7 and this 3 for this is 45. Okay, so 45 into 10 to the power minus 4 meter or 4.5 millimeter. Clear? So in this way you have to solve the question. 18. First part, an electron, an alpha particle and a proton have same kinetic energy. Which one of these particles has the shortest de Broglie wavelength? How will you solve the first part? You know, electron, alpha particle and proton, they are of different masses, and how the de Broglie wavelength is given? This is lambda equal to h upon p, the wavelength associated with every moving particle. You know, they have same kinetic energy, so write momentum in terms of kinetic energy, then you will write this will be under root 2 mk. For the same kinetic energy, now lambda and m, how are they related? Look, you can conclude here this lambda is inversely proportional to root m. Now simply, since electron, alpha and proton, this alpha particle has maximum mass as compared to these electron and proton, so lambda will be the shortest, m will be more, lambda will be lesser. So which will have shortest de Broglie wavelength associated? Alpha particle. So what is answer? Answer is alpha particle. How? This I have explained. Second part, this was the first. Second part says, when an electron in hydrogen atom jumps from the third excited state to the ground state, how would the de Broglie wavelength associated with the electron change? You know, in case of electron moving in a stable orbit, its speed is given by 1 upon n. Here, you know this relation V inversely proportional to n. Electron is jumping from third state to the ground state, jumped from third state to the ground state. So for third excited state, what is the value of n? You know, for the third excited state, n is given by 4, and for ground state, what is n? N is given by 1. You should pay attention here. Most of the students here, they do the mistake, third state, so they write n equal to 3. So this is the point to be noted. For third excited state, n equal to 4, because ground state is n equal to 1. Second excited state, first excited state, n equal to 2. Second excited state, n equal to 3. Then third, n equal to 4. Now, what is kinetic energy. If V is inversely proportional to N, then this kinetic energy will be inversely proportional to 1 by N square or not. From this relation, you know lambda, de Broglie wavelength is this lambda. How lambda and kinetic energy, they are related. You know, we have seen lambda is inversely proportional to root k. This expression gives you lambda 1 upon lambda 4 equal to this, if you write square, then you can write here this will be k4 upon k1 if you take the square. Here for the first n equal to 1 for ground state, n equal to 4 for third excited state. Then how the de Broglie wavelength change will you find here? Look here, that for this here kinetic energy is half mv square, and we have seen here v is proportional to 1 by n. This is the electron, how the de Broglie wavelength change. Then you will write here this is lambda 1 upon lambda 4, that is equal to under root k4 upon k1. So and k1 upon k4, what will you write from this relation? That will be 1 upon 16. Therefore here this is 16 upon 1. Okay, why? Because this is the inverse relation. So put here this lambda 1 upon lambda 4 as k4 upon k1. Then what will you write here? This will be under root 1 upon 16, or it will be 1 by 4. So in what way de Broglie wavelength associated with them with the electron change? Look here. See the last question of section C, question 19. Draw a level diagram of a full wave rectifier. Show how the output voltage varies with time if input voltage is sinusoidal voltage. You know the input is applied from the, what is this, the symbol? AC source. So if this is the AC source which is applied across the primary coil of a transformer, these two lines are the soft iron core, and here the secondary coil of the transformer, it is shown like this. This is the P1 P2 coil of the primary coil of the transformer, and this is S1 S2 secondary coil of the transformer. One PN junction is attached to S1 here, and the other end S2 other PN junction is attached. So we take two junction diode for full wave rectifier. What is the main thing? That the secondary coil of the transformer is centrally tapped. This is central tapping shown by this arrow, and here across this resistance called load resistance, output is obtained. This is the circuit diagram. This diode, suppose its name is D1 and its name is D2. The input applied is shown here. If you draw the graph for the input voltage, that is the sinusoidal voltage, it is given here. Then you have to draw the graph for sinusoidal voltage like this. You draw two lines here and the equally spaced with the, to show the input and output voltages, you have to draw the equal spacing here, this one like this. When the input is applied across the primary coils of the transformer, P1 P2 is the primary coil, here this is input and here this is output. Okay, this input voltage is V equal to We have read V naught sine omega t, sinusoidal variation. How will you show here? Like this. You have shown here, this is the input variation. Okay. Now, how will you get output? As it is set, you have to show whenever the input voltage is applied across primary due to mutual induction, the working of transformer, the secondary coil, here this voltage is secondary coil, across secondary coil, we get the voltage induced due to the primary coil, and with respect to point, suppose this is S1 and you put here the name O. With respect to O, S1 is when positive, then S2 will be negative. You know, for this cycle, if you see for first half cycle, when for the input coil for the first half cycle, if you get this P1, P2 which has primary coil of the transformer and due to mutual induction we get the output voltage across secondary. With respect to O, what is the role of central tapping here? With respect to O, whatever will be the positive potential of S1, equally negative will be the end S2. So look here, when S1 will be positive, S2 will be negative, and for the second half cycle of input, when S1 will be negative, then S2 will be positive. So what happens for the first half cycle, when S1 is positive, then P is positive and is negative, so this is forward biased, and this D2, since S2 will be negative, so this will be reverse biased, and you know, when PN junction is forward biased, it conducts, when reverse biased, it doesn't. So you will get current in output due to D1. So you see the voltage is obtained across output, this load resistance RL, and like this. Due to which diode? Due to diode D1. Now in the second half cycle of the input, this will be negative, this negative half cycle, then this will be equally positive. This is the role of central tapping. Now this will be positive, so this D2 will conduct and D1 will not. You will get current due to D2. So you are getting current in the output due to one of the diodes. So when this is for the first half cycle, positive half cycle, D1 conducts, and for the second half cycle, that is negative one, this D2 conducts. So you are getting output like this due to D2. Again for the first half cycle, which diode will conduct? D1. So you will get the current or voltage in the output due to D1. For the next half cycle, negative one, this will be positive, this will become negative. So you are getting continuously voltage unidirectional pulses in the form of output voltage. Now this unidirectional pulses, this which is said to be output voltage, is sent to the smoothing circuit, filter circuit, to get smooth voltage. So in this way the full wave rectifier works. I hope it will be clear to you.